to Business, Bets, and Buddies, the Hounds of Business Fantasy Football League. Join us each week throughout the football season as some of the world's top podcasters discover new businesses, make silly fantasy football bets amongst friends, and promote positivity around the globe. This show could not be possible without the support of Mike King and ESPN Richmond. A special thanks to our sponsors, William B. Media and the Walking Tall Movement. Well, we are back once again, and my good friend Mark Reid, good to see you. I'm not going to yet introduce our special guest referee, as I'll call him, but Mark, you're wearing something pretty unique, and I want you to talk a little bit about that. But first, who the hell are you? Where are you from? What are you doing here? And where do you stand in the Fantasy Football League?
I am, well, let's go in reverse order then, because I'm in first place in the Fantasy Football League. I'm still a game ahead of you, and that pimple that just won't pop, Raquel Borjas. She's still hanging in there. But
we'll have to get some Noxzema.
Yeah, my goodness, I can't get rid of her. I'm kidding, Raquel. I love Raquel. But I'm originally from Birmingham, Alabama. I don't talk like that too much. I can turn it off and I can turn it on. But I currently live in Yamaguchi, Japan, and probably for the rest of my life. I married a Japanese woman, and I'm happy here. So that's more information than you probably wanted. I'm wearing a yukata. This is normally a what you would wear in the summertime in Japan. This was a gift given to me, and it ties in. I'm wearing it because it ties into something we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about sumo, and this particular yukata has a former yokozuna, which is the top level of sumo. Hokutoumi is his name that's on this yukata. I will tie that into a story later. I think that's enough you got from me, though.
Yeah, and you said something, Yokozuna, and my ears perked up, because when I hear the word wrestling, I think professional wrestling. And growing up, my dad taking me to the Rosemont Horizon in Chicago and seeing Hulk Hogan climb the steel cage against the Big Boss Man and watching the Survivor Series every Thanksgiving night, that's some of my passions. And that's why I'm here, as the co-founder of the Walking Tall Movement, one of the sponsors of Business, Bets, and Buddies, our fantasy football league through the Hounds of Business. But our special guest referee, without further ado, if you don't know, is Mr. Joe Galley. And Joe's a good friend of mine from the National Wrestling Alliance, which is the oldest professional wrestling company in the United States, has had the likes of Ric Flair. And that's all I need to say, right, Joe? You stop at Ric Flair. I'm a Hulkamaniac, if you can't tell by my hat. But before we get into the sumo, Joe, introduce yourself real quick, and then we'll get to the pro stuff here in a little bit.
Well, Chris, Mark, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. Konnichiwa, everybody out there in the land of the rising sun right there.
Konnichiwa.
And that is, for people who aren't watching this, I mean, that is very stylish what you have going on there.
Thanks.
I'm jealous of my polo shirt, my official NWA polo shirt. Available at nationalwrestlingalliance.com/shop.
Oh, look, he's a pro. I love it.
I am the lead broadcaster for the National Wrestling Alliance, and as Chris mentioned, it's been around for over 75 years at this point. And during this current era, that we like to call the Lightning One era, Billy Corgan bought the brand about 7 years ago, and we've had a very steady continuation of programming through pay-per-views that stream on Fight. And we have been on YouTube and are still currently on YouTube with our hit show NWA Power with 3 R's. And right now, which has just happened in the past week, you can watch our recent episodes on the CW app. So we have started to merge over to the CW and be a part of that major broadcasting empire that's there. And people who are familiar with wrestling know that WWE's developmental program, NXT, is also moving to CW later on in the year. So we're getting a little bit ahead of them. We're already on their app. It's an exciting time to be a professional wrestler, to be in the business of professional wrestling, and to also be a fan of professional wrestling. There's so much of it out there, and it's so good right now. And I just love being able to come on shows like this one and talk all about the great stuff that we're doing with the National Wrestling Alliance and how we're growing all over the United States now. We've got so many more fans. We got fans internationally. We just came off a big tour in Australia. We were doing shows alongside the Smashing Pumpkins. Go figure. You got the boss right there. He's playing music in between sets. We're having matches. And we got a lot of fans that way. We did it in Australia this past year. We did it in Mexico. And there's going to be a lot more of that coming up in the future. So it's shining bright for the NWA, baby.
Yeah, no. And,
Joe,
can
I ask you
some...
I just want to ask
Mark,
you a question.
I was going to go right to you. Yeah, let's go ahead.
You can. Let me ask Joe a question. Was Billy Corgan a wrestling fan? What was his motive for buying the thing?
Oh, he is the biggest wrestling fan. Not only is he a fan, he is like a historian aficionado. He has so many collectibles just at his home and at his business. I mean, vintage championship belts that date all the way back to the 30s and 40s. And he has a huge wealth of knowledge. I mean, he grew up being a fan of professional wrestling. And, tangentially, he was part of, several different other companies before buying the NWA. He opened a small independent promotion in Chicago, where he's from. And then after that, he became a pretty big deal over with what is now renamed TNA Wrestling. He was with them for a number of years and then bought the NWA. And ever since then, I mean, it's really been like the most passionate project that Billy has. And that's saying something for a guy who's doing international tours, putting out albums, hitting the studio. Just had a big Christmas special on ABC, the Smashing Pumpkins coming to you from Walt Disney World. But all the time while he's doing that, while he's at Disney World, he's texting me about wrestling stuff. So
it's so funny, Joe. You say the same thing, and we got to know each other when we did the HP Cares for Cooper event for Cooper Roberts in Highland Park. And I was fortunate enough to have a couple hours of Billy's time as we started to plan the event and to hear his passion for professional wrestling, being a fan myself, was pretty cool, and someone of his prominence and stature to be so invested in the sport and in the entertainment aspect of it is pretty exciting. But Mark, speaking of being entertained, man, you were entertained this past weekend. I want folks to hear all about this sumo wrestling event you were at. I think it's a great opportunity to educate listeners on that sport briefly, and then since you did reference Yokozuna, we'll get into the professional side afterwards.
Dude, we don't have enough time. I had a blast, man. It was a little mini vacation just by myself. My wife was busy with her work, so I'm like, well, I'm going because the sumo tournament's on, and this is the one each year that's near where I live. It's in Fukuoka, and they have 6 sumo tournaments a year. 3 are always in Tokyo, and every other one that's not in Tokyo is in Osaka, Nagoya, and then Fukuoka. That's near where I live. So, this is my yearly pilgrimage to the tournament. I don't know, man. What do you want to know? I actually got.
No, I know. Well, do we have a quick video or something backstage? Is there something we could show people who are viewing? Mark sent me over the weekend some photos. I know he was fanboying out over some of the superstars.
Dude, I was like a 12-year-old girl at a New Kids on the Block concert. It was like...
Well, it'd be no different than like if I met Hulk Hogan. I mean, look at this. This is just these guys are just larger than life, wearing nothing but a thong underwear.
Mawashi, that's what it's called.
Oh, not a thong. Okay. So, Joe, do you know much about sumo wrestling? I know you get to go overseas and you know a lot about the sport of professional wrestling, but what's your interest in sumo?
Look, sumo is so interesting because if you look at the greater scheme of things with combat sports, it's probably one of the oldest that's still celebrated in a very traditional way. Yes. I mean, sumo wrestling really hasn't changed in 100 years, 200 years, maybe more than that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And just the amount of tradition that goes in to each bout that they have is absolutely incredible. And, for people who aren't looking at this video that you shot, I mean, that is a sold out crowd there in Japan. And it shows how much there still is an interest for this incredibly, I don't want to say old, but it martial arts that's there. Yeah, and there's so much respect for it too. I mean, a lot of these sumo wrestlers, they're celebrities in Japan. I mean, these are big time guys, not just in size, but just also being personalities. They're beloved. They get put on magazines. And, you know, it's not just being a big fat guy. You know, there's always that joke in America that sumo's just a bunch of fat guys. These guys are athletes, and they work so hard, and they diet so hard, and they push themselves to be the best. And the difficulty that comes with the sport of sumo, not only do you need to be strong, you need to be fast, and you need to be flexible with that sport. And to be able to do all that while still possibly weighing in at 300 pounds, 400 pounds, that's so incredibly difficult to do. So I have so much respect for anybody who participates in that sport.
Like one thing that people don't realize about sumo is that because you think it's just the first person to get pushed out of the ring or knocked down, and you think that's all. There are 82 different ways to win a sumo match. 82.
Holy cow. 82
different throws. I mean, it's still the basic rule is if any portion of your body other than your foot touches the ground, you're out, or if you're out of the ring, you're out. But there's 82 ways to do that.
I love it. That's kind of like professional wrestling. Sia, before we move on, can you play this video? Because, you know, I also was at a wrestling event this past weekend. And as Joe was saying, there's such a difference in environment and the level of respect, you know, shown at a sumo event compared to a professional wrestling event is quite comical. But if you don't mind, show this quick video. I think those watching at home would be interested in seeing this. Think of that, you know, and look at the, and then there he is, the fangirl. I mean, the fanboy with Jordan and Danny and Donnie and Mark and whomever else.
Pretty much.
Mark, who are some of those guys? And then we'll talk a little bit about my form of wrestling. But let listeners know who these guys are.
So those two are actually they're pretty big dogs in the sumo world. The one that's in the they're both wearing kind of formal attire there. But anyway, one of them is named, the one that's at nighttime there that you can see outside, his name's Tobizaru. And he's kind of a bad boy of sumo. I mean, there are no bad boys. It's not like Joe's.
So he's a heel, sport. Joe. He's a heel.
Yeah, but
he's flipping off the crowd.
Yeah, there's nothing like that. But you know, he does kind of win in unconventional ways because he's a little bit smaller. You can see, like, he's not much taller than I am, and I'm not that tall of a guy. But the other guy that you see, the other photo, now he is his rank is komusubi, which is in the top. Like it goes Yokozuna, Ozeki, Sekiwake, and Komusubi. Those are the top. And then everybody else is called Maigashira or something. And anyway, that is a big dog, and he is huge. He was standing behind me in line. Like I was on my way home. I was buying a Shinkansen ticket to come back home. And I looked behind me, and I was like, I mean, I really did fangirl out on this. I shouted his name. I was like, Hokuto Fuji. And he was like, Hokuto Fuji.
Oh,
and he was like, he was shocked that this white guy standing in line for the Shinkansen knew who he was. And I was like, I don't just know who you are, man. I've got this yukata that it's his coach. I told you at the beginning, this yukata has Hokuto Umi, his name on it. Well, that's his oyakata, his boss, his coach. And so it was just shocking of all of the rikishi, of all the wrestlers that could have been standing behind me in line. It's this guy, and he's I can't say badass on the radio, can I? You have to edit that one out. So
you just did.
But he is amazing. And the dude was just standing behind me, and I was like, can I take a picture? And Shashini desu ka? That means, can I take a picture?
Well, he lets you, and you look so happy, and I love that you got to do that. And like I mentioned briefly, I was able to go this weekend to the WWE's Thanksgiving benchmark pay-per-view Survivor Series. And see, I think there's a video quick of my experience. I took a great friend who had not yet been to a professional wrestling event, and they were in awe of the environment. So see, if you want to pull that up, Joe, we'll get we'll talk a little bit about this environment now moving forward. So see, yeah, let her rip. So that's CM Punk. He's a Chicago native where I hail from, and he made a surprise appearance 10 years in the making back to the WWF. And Joe, I know you deal specifically in the professional wrestling scene, and I've got to see you guys work behind the scenes. So Talk a little bit about that environment. We were talking earlier today about the pop. They call it the pop. That's 18,000 people going bonkers, screaming CM Punk. What's it like to be on the mic, hearing stuff like that go around you based on what you're entertaining folks with?
Well, CM Punk's return to WWE, I mean, that is a huge benchmark moment for that company and for CM Punk, who, for people who follow professional wrestling, I mean, he's really beloved by a lot of people out there as sort of the anti-hero of so many different companies, starting with, I mean, if you take a look at the career of just CM Punk, he signed his WWE contract while he was sitting in a Ring of Honor ring, and you don't really see that from a lot of people. And so his ability to be genuine and like you hear in his theme song, there is a cult of personality behind CM Punk, and for him to make that jump from AEW and back to WWE, that's going to get you that explosive pop, and that's going to be a really big moment. Now, if you're the key from my job as a broadcaster for that is you have to learn to lay out, because when you're watching at home, you want as much of that audience to be able to feel that moment as you can. And it's hard when you're in the arena itself, the electricity's there and you feel it. But if you're watching it at home and maybe you don't have a big surround sound system or something, you want to still convey that emotion that's coming from the venue itself. And the best way to do that a lot of times is to just shut your mouth, and you just have to live in that moment that's there. And so a lot of the times that I've been a part of some big moment in the National Wrestling Alliance, I've been able to just kind of sit back and enjoy it with the fans in that time. And it just kind of gets really exciting at that point to be able to just really just absorb what's happening. And not that being said, like, it's always cool to have the really big call when there's the title change or whatever that's there, but to be there. And that's really what brings wrestling fans together, is that sort of being a part of big, memorable, historic moments like that. And that's why I think wrestling as it is right now, with the NWA and AEW and WWE and TNA and the thousands of other companies that are out there, you're being able to share these big moments, whether it's in front of the 18,000 people in Chicago, or if it's in front of our studio audience crowd, which is 200 people. You're still feeling that energy that's there, and it makes it very special. And that's why people are still gravitating to professional wrestling that's, over 100 years old. And to be honest, not a whole lot of it's changed. It's evolved, throughout the years, especially with television being a big part of that. But it's still essentially the same thing, of this beautiful combat sport that tells a story that draws people in and makes you want to come back again and again and again.
Joe,
that's why I've been coming back since I was 8. And Joe, I want to just say, I know you talked about title changes and the drama side of the professional sport, and I know you guys just had NWA 75, and you guys had within the National Wrestling Alliance a ton of title changes. Tyrus lost to EC3, and Camille lost to Kenzie Page, and I know you guys are doing a lot of great new things. And the trajectory of the National Wrestling Alliance is moving upwards fast. So, we have a few minutes left, and I know Mark wants to ask something. So, why don't you talk about what all the good things you guys got coming up in the National Wrestling Alliance, and where people could find out more about you and the company itself?
It's going to be a big year for the NWA, just like 2023 has been. 2024 is going to be even bigger. Now that we have this partnership with CW, there's obviously going to be a lot of growth there. Not only do we have the show that's available on the app, there's going to be some expansion there, and there's going to be another show that's going to be going on to CW as well. And that show is going to really focus on the inner workings of the NWA. Billy Corgan's going to be a huge part of that show there. And so it's really interesting that's going forward right now. And not only that, we're expecting to do a lot more international shows as well. So a lot of stuff has been the planning phases right now, but 2024 is going to be really big. If you want to get caught up on our action, you can watch all NWA Power. It is available for free on the NWA YouTube channel. So just go on YouTube and search NWA Power with 3 R's. It'll pop right up, and you can get caught up with all of our incredible characters, our big time athletes, and our style of professional wrestling, which I believe it's hard hitting. It's in your face. It's tough. Our athletes are usually bigger than what you see on a lot of other promotions. And I mean, physically bigger. Like, we got some big dudes in there. in my opinion, we also have the best women's division in the sport of professional wrestling as well. So tune in right now, get caught up. And then when we have some big announcements, when it comes to more stuff that you'll find on CW or us traveling internationally or us having a lot of these territories, we've territory system. We have our first one that is in Cleveland called Exodus Pro, which is run by our world heavyweight champion EC3. And breaking news, we're going to have another one coming very, very soon. Some major announcements coming on that as well. So it's expanding, it's getting bigger, it's getting better. And we're going to be able to get to a lot more TV screens, make a lot more money, and make a lot more people happy.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And
Chris,
and Mark, I know you had a question, so have at it. Go for it.
So, Joe, given your backstage access, like I love everything you've said, and I'm interested in NWA now. I mean, I was before, but even more so now. But I want a background story, man. Tell us something you saw backstage or some kind of encounter you had, something that the public doesn't get to see. Give us some secret sauce, some juicy stuff.
You want me to stooge on the back and give you the dirt? Come on, brother.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make you lose my job.
Letting the cat out of the bag.
Oh, my God.
Come on, something that you go ahead.
Here's something that's interesting. I'll tell you this story because it's fantastic. And we just celebrated the career of Austin Idol in Sarasota. He'd been in this business for 50 years and really at the top. If you look at Austin Idol and you take a look at what he was doing in his day, you're going to see a lot of what Hulk Hogan ended up emulating a lot of. And so he really laid the foundation for a lot of what you saw. And there was one show, we were in Knoxville, Tennessee, and Billy Corgan wanted Austin Idol to do something in a match as a manager. I believe it was get punched in the face. And Austin Idol didn't want to get punched in the face.
Right.
And so he came to me. He's like, "What are we doing this?" I'm like, "Well, if you have questions, let's go talk to the boss about it." And so we go in the back, and Austin Idol's there. And for 10 minutes, he says basically the same sentence over and over again, changing words slightly. And eventually he got his way to what he wanted. And it was just so masterful to watch this guy who's been so good at not only apparently manipulating audiences that are watching wrestling, but also all the people that have hired him to work for him.
Yeah.
To watch and to see that mastery, it was just like watching it was perfect. It was just the most perfect thing I've ever seen. It was not violent in any way, but it was just like I was blown away by his ability to get exactly what he wanted by basically saying the same sentence over and over and over again.
Yeah. Just change it a little bit till you get what you actually want. That's awesome.
No, Mark, that's why you're the pro that you are, asking fantastic questions like that. And, the one thing I'll say is having the opportunity to be backstage with Joe this summer, at HP Cares for Cooper, the talent, as they call it, the superstars are just larger than life, but their hearts are also the same. And seeing them work for Cooper Roberts as we did, and all the work that they still continue to do and awareness they create for good causes is awesome. So, Joe, thanks again for all you do with the National Wrestling Alliance and for joining us. I want to thank our sponsors, obviously Brilliant Beam Media and Ms. Celia Sotorat, the Hounds of Business Community and Mr. Mike Asherbranner, us in the Walking Tall Movement, Todd Blyleven, Dr. Vanessa LaRosa, and myself, Chris Maliszewski. Mark, if there's anything you want to say before we sign off, let folks know who you are and where they can find Zen Sandwich.
Well, you can find it at zensandwich.com or, wherever you listen to podcasts. You can go to Spotify, you can go to Apple, Google Podcasts if it's still around, Amazon Music, Pandora, everywhere. Just type in Zen Sandwich. Sammich. So sandwich, like the fun way to say it.
Yeah, and it was fun. I was a guest this past week, so we didn't even get to that. But Joe, is there anything else? I know you're very active on Twitter or the X or whatever the heck we call it. Where could folks find you and stay up to date on the NWA?
I think that the best thing people could do is find the NWA on social media. Just search the letters NWA on X, Instagram, all the meta, all the stuff like that. We're even on all the ancillary stuff, Rumble, all that sort of stuff. We're all over it. We're always posting our stuff. And just kind of keep your eye on that. I know everybody who's got cable still, or even if you still have an old pair of rabbit ears, that means you get the CW network, baby. So you can go ahead and watch it.
Is it even in Japan, I bet? So, and I'm Chris Maliszewski, like I said, with the Walking Tall Movement, a mental health advocacy group inspiring all to be vulnerable and approachable. We could be found at walkingtallmovement.com. LinkedIn, Twitter, all the other social medias like everybody else here. But guys, we can go on forever. We didn't even get to Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant WrestleMania 3 or Tyrus versus EC3 NWA 75. So we'll have to do this again. But thanks for your time, and everybody have a great rest of your week, and walk tall. This show would not be possible without the support of Mike King and ESPN Radio. A special thanks to our sponsors, Brilliant Beam Media at brilliantbeammedia.com and the Walking Tall Movement at walkingtallmovement.com. Walk tall.